Rachael English visits Wexford and Waterford to test the political temperature in the sunny southeast.
And the following is the result.
The first count in Galway West.
And it's not easy. Election counts aren't easy for any candidate.
The total poll, 49,944. Filed votes, 478.
I deem them to be elected.
Hello and welcome to The Constituency. It's been a week of debate about the big issues, about the electoral impact of the budget, about the latest national opinion poll, and about the strengths and weaknesses of the party leaders. But as the old adage has it, every general election actually consists of 43 separate elections. And this week our focus is on two of those contests in the southeast. The 5-seat constituency of Wexford and the 4-seater here in Waterford. Now, Waterford is a constituency that, according to John O'Connor of the Munster Express, is the country in microcosm.
Well, it is, because there's a city, there's Waterford City, then there's several urban towns like the county town of Dungarve and other towns. There are rural villages, but then there are quite remote areas as well in the mountains and in West Waterford. So I think usually the turnout, when everything is added up, the turnout is usually, the Waterford turnout and the national turnout are usually the same. And usually if there's a trend nationally, it's usually reflected in Waterford as well.
And if Waterford is the country writ small, it is perhaps fitting that voters I spoke to raised a more diverse range of election issues than people I've encountered elsewhere, although there were also some familiar themes.
One of the biggest issues that I would like to see happening is infrastructure. I think there should be motorways from Waterford to most parts of the country, definitely Cork, Galway and Dublin. Now that's supposed to be happening, but it ain't happening really quick, so that's one of my major items.
Foreign policy would be a big one for me personally. I'm not so sure it's the most important for a politician to be addressing. Obviously they should look at national issues first, but I found that the accountability in regard to Shannon, in regard to EU matters and not taking enough of care with other foreign policy issues was a big concern for me.
I'd see housing as a major issue here. Also, things for young people to do. They're going to complain a lot about antisocial behaviour with young people and everything like that, and they're not offering alternatives. They don't seem to be a lot of facilities for younger people to be doing anything.
The next woman I met had a fascinating story, especially in a week when there's been a lot of debate about the psychiatric services for children. She was in her 60s when she had a nervous breakdown, having just recovered from cancer. And she told me that while she had no complaints about her cancer treatment, she's still angry about the state of the mental health service.
I, having experienced a nervous breakdown, thought that the psychiatric issue is not being dealt with at all.
What, you thought the facilities and that were quite poor?
I thought the whole setup was like, I was locked up now and I was terrified. I petrified, I nearly died. I couldn't believe it. I was 63 too at the time. I had never been sick in my life, I'd never been in hospital, you know what I mean? I felt that the psychiatric issue here is not being dealt with.
It's one that we all like to forget about, maybe.
It's one that we all like to forget about.
You're obviously a lot better now.
Oh God, I'm home 2 years now since last May, but I will never forget that psychiatric treatment, never.
Some of the issues raised by Waterford voters this week, but in 2002 there was one issue that really set the Waterford election campaign alight.
The Taoiseach emerged from a hail of daffodils and choice words, visibly annoyed at what had happened. Taoiseach, what do you think of the protest here this morning?
Well, I must say, normally you get nice peaceful protests, but a long time ago since I got the car kicked in and choice language and people bashing the car, but I know what they are.
Obviously the depth of feeling.
I know the people who banging the car down there. I know them.
Bertie Ahern under fire over the lack of radiotherapy services for cancer patients in the southeast. In the end, a sort of compromise was found. Radiotherapy facilities were to be provided at a new private hospital in Waterford. But last month it was revealed that those facilities were often lying idle while public patients still had to travel to Dublin for radiotherapy. So I asked local Fianna Fáil TD and Minister Martin Cullen when the debacle was going to be sorted out.
Well, as you know, I've spoken on this recently and I've been very close to this issue. Right from the very beginning, when it was mooted that there might be a private hospital, I pursued that very deliberately, and the aspect of radiotherapy to deliver it. The facilities are now in place, the second linear accelerator is in, and I understand from meetings that have just occurred between the HSE and the hospital authorities that all of the conditions will be met shortly, and we'll have public patients being treated, and as is rightly so, for radiotherapy early in the new year.
Martin Cullen was the Waterford poll topper last time out. The other sitting TDs are his party colleague Ollie Wilkinson, Fine Gael's John Deasy and Brian O'Shea of Labour. All are running again. Now, it's fair to say that the Transport Minister is no stranger to the newspaper headlines. There was the controversy over the hiring of the Waterford-based PR consultant Monica Leach. There were the electronic voting machines that still haven't been used. And just this week there were complaints that he wasn't doing enough on road safety. Is he worried that all of this is going to affect his vote?
Well, everything affects your vote. You always hope that whatever it is, that it affects you positively. My job is twofold. One, primarily in the first instance, I'm elected by the people of Waterford to represent them and to make sure that Waterford is economically sound and viable for the future, and that it is getting its fair share nationally. I think we would have felt in Waterford for years that wasn't the case.
Now, of course, at the next election, people won't be voting electronically, and you were, of course, one of the big backers of electronic voting. Are you disappointed that people will be using what Bertie Ahern would term the stupid old pencil and paper?
I suppose it's an issue that I'll always be associated with, even though I wasn't in the government that decided to go electronic voting, nor was I the minister who decided on the system. I found myself carrying it out.
You were the man who had to defend it, though.
I was, and defend it I did and would. And, there's a system that over 400,000 people in this country have used, and very successfully. But it will come in time. Inevitably, like the rest of the world, which has moved on by and large to electronic voting systems, Ireland will be the same.
People in Waterford say politics here is always that little bit different. For example, the Workers' Party remain a force here and will have a candidate in the general election. Waterford is also cited frequently by the Sinn Féin leadership as one of their target constituencies. The party's candidate, David Cullinan, received some national attention at the last European elections when he polled more than 30,000 first preference votes. As he sees it, whatever has been done for the South East, to use an old phrase, there's more to do.
What I want to do is bring issues which are relevant to the people of Waterford right into the Leinster House and right into the corridors of power, and ensure that Waterford issues are to the forefront, and that we can do that from a national perspective.
What you might call the left-wing or protest vote here in Waterford is quite fractured. There are a lot of candidates there. There's the sitting TD, Brian O'Shea of the Labour Party. The Green Party have a well-known candidate. The Workers' Party are strong in Waterford. So where are you going to get the extra votes from?
Well, Sinn Féin is very strong in Waterford as well. If you take the last number of elections that we fought in this constituency, in the last general election, we got nearly half a Dáil quota, and was the first time we stood in many, many years. In the last local and European elections, we got 4 council seats across the constituency. I, as a European candidate, took 10,500 votes from the Waterford constituency.
The national opinion polls would suggest that the Sinn Féin vote has stalled. Would that worry you?
No, because the national opinion polls, first of all, there's a margin of error of 3%, but also they've traditionally understated the Sinn Féin support. People are saying to us in Waterford that you can take a seat.
No matter how many times you ask David Cullinan, he won't say whose seat he is targeting, but the most vulnerable TDs are Ollie Wilkinson of Fianna Fáil and Labour's Brian O'Shea. If you ask either party, they say that it's the other party who must be more concerned. John O'Connor of the Munster Express has been looking at the chances of the 11 candidates, starting with Fine Gael. They have a ticket of 3 in Waterford, sitting TD John Deasy, and 2 councillors, Jim Darcy and Paddy Coffey.
It's interesting with Fine Gael this time, because the last time out they had 2, and for previous elections before that, and the other candidate the last time out with John Deasy was Maurice Cummins, who's now in the Senate. But Maurice, it was quite a big shock when he didn't get through the nomination process this time. So there's Jim Darcy, who's a city councillor, and there's Paddy Coffey, who's a county councillor. John Deasy, I think John will probably have no trouble being elected. He won't like me saying that, but I think he will, and I think if he doesn't head the poll, he might be second in the poll. But having said that again, there's a big disappointment that if Fine Gael were in a coalition, the likelihood is that John mightn't be minister, and that's very important in Waterford.
Now, there are also 3 Fianna Fáil candidates. We've already heard from Martin Cullen. Who are the 2 others?
Well, there's Ollie Wilkinson and Brenda Keneally. Now, Ollie Wilkinson is a first-time TD. He was elected the last time, and he took Brenda Keneally's seat.
Right, so there'd be a good internal rivalry within Fianna Fáil at the moment.
There would, and my information is that Brenda Keneally is working really, really hard and to try and win back that seat.
The other man elected in 2002 was Brian O'Shea of the Labour Party.
A lot of Brian's vote would have been, he would have got the core Labour vote, but he would have got a lot of personal votes. I think some of the hopefuls this time out, they're probably, in the past when a seat went, it was usually one of the Fianna Fáil seats. And I think this time they might be eyeing Brian's seat for a variety of reasons. He's just been there a long time, and about 18 months ago he wasn't very well, but he's fine now again, and he's around and he's working very hard. So I think Brian will be okay.
Let's take a look then at the other candidates. We've heard from David Cullinan of Sinn Féin.
Yeah.
John Halligan will be running for the Workers' Party. Brendan McCann is running for the Green Party.
Yeah.
And there's also, at the moment, an interesting independent. She's Mary Roach, and I think she's the only woman in the field.
So far she is, yeah. She was elected to the City Council as a Fianna Fáil councillor, but she left Fianna Fáil over the radiotherapy issue in Waterford, and then she was re-elected as an independent. Now, there's been lots of speculation that various parties have been courting her. Fianna Fáil want her back. It's been said the PDs would like to get her on board, but so far she hasn't budged.
What about the others then? I mean, what do you reckon is going to happen?
It'll be interesting. I mean, I don't think David Cullinan will be elected. I mean, although Sinn Féin are they'll tell you he will. They're very hopeful for him. He got about 3,000 first preferences the last time. He'd probably improve on that, but one of his problems will be transfers.
Overall then, you reckon that Martin Cullen is safe enough, that John Deasy is safe enough, which leaves 2 seats to be filled and I think 9 candidates going for them.
I would say in Waterford there's always a chance of a surprise, but I would say no change. The most likely possibility of a change is Brenda Keneally perhaps chasing down Ollie Wilkinson.
John O'Connor, if there's always a chance of a surprise,